What I fell in love with, Nikki, was the building of teams, the humanity of it, building teams that made a difference. I believe that leaders change the world. I knew that I wanted to give back to young leaders around the world, so that's when I started Leaders Edge.
Welcome to the Thought Leader Revolution with Nikki Ballou. Join the revolution. There's never been a better time in history to speak your truth, find your freedom, and make your fortune. Each week, we interview the world's top thought leaders and learn the secrets of how they built a 6 to 7 figure practice. This episode has been brought to you by eCircleacademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.
Welcome to an exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. I'm your host, Nikki Ballou. And boy, do we have an exciting guest lined up for you today. Today's guest is a true thought leader. He is someone with a vast wealth of experience that you are going to learn from how to make your business life far more effective. I am speaking, of course, of none other than the one, the only, the legendary HR Huntsman. Welcome to the show, HR.
Thank you, my friend. That's an amazing introduction. It's an honor to be here.
It's great to have you here, my brother.
Thanks, my friend.
Tell us your backstory. How'd you get to be the great HR Huntsman?
Well, we got to go back 60 years. Can't believe I'm saying that. 1965, born in southern New Mexico. Pretty solid family in my birth. My dad worked for NASA. He worked on the Mercury and Apollo moon programs. My mom was a hairdresser and accountant. But my life took a major shift downward. My dad had his first stroke when I was 18 months of age. From then on, he lived with my mom and I. And then I found him when I was 9 years old. I found him dead in the backyard, second stroke. In the meantime, my mom had divorced him and married my first stepdad. Had 2 kids by him. And so weird situation. My mom's living with stepdad while taking care of my dad. And I didn't know he was my dad till after he died. And so then there's 3 boys in the house. That guy ran off with another woman. My mom's a single mom now, taking care of my dad and 3 boys. And just left a huge hole in my soul. And this is going to make sense to my story of why I do what I do in a second. Left a huge hole in my soul, my home. All these men came in and out of my life. His other boyfriends, second stepdad brought abuse into our home. Lots of chaos, anger, alcoholism, abuse, and just a huge hole where a good, healthy dad should have been. Like I said, my biological dad died when I was 9, and I found out he was my dad after that. So it just kind of messed me up. I was always told I grew up really poor. Lived in trailers. I was called trailer trash, white trash my whole life. Pretty sharp kid. I love building stuff, Legos, erector sets, chemistry sets, Radio Shack, 50-in-1. So I love building and creating, and I see that still now. Anyway, long story short, kids like you don't go to college. I was told that either be a ditch digger or join the military. So I joined the Air Force, scored really high on the ASVAB. I could get any job I wanted. I wanted electronic engineer. And was on my way to do that. And that's when I met John Simmons. So I was on my way to become a millionaire. That was my goal. I was going to kind of cover up all this insecurity and pain and chaos and anger with money. I was going to paper it over with all that. I wouldn't have known that at the time, but that's where I was headed. I met John Simmons, and he told me this, Nikki. He said, H, I want you to take all that pain. He was a great mentor of mine. I want you to take all that pain, and rather than be successful, I want you to make your life useful. I've never forgotten that. That was about 40-something years ago now. I want you to make your life useful. So I took all that pain, and he helped me work through a lot of it. And rather than becoming an electronic engineer and software developer, at age 28, I started my first company, a nonprofit humanitarian organization. I wanted to change the world, Nikki. And so not knowing anything about leadership or anything to the passion and vision and nothing else, I started that, and we grew from scratch over the next 25 years to be quite large. And when I retired at 50, we were working in 5 countries. I had 200 staff working in 5 countries around the world, drilling wells and water projects and hygiene projects and vegetable gardens and orphanages and drug and alcohol rehab centers and food programs, and we chased hurricanes, Ike and Katrina, and worked in those communities, building homes, trying to rebuild. So here's the backstory. Here's why this matters. As much as I am proud of all the work we did around the world, I've given 4,000 talks to about 400,000 people. What I fell in love with, Nikki, was the building of teams. I fell in love with building teams, the humanity of it, building teams that made a difference. I believe that leaders change the world. I've seen it in huts in the Maasai. I've seen it in boardrooms in America. And I believe in the power of leadership and the power of good teams. So when I retire, I can't retire. I love to work. I knew that I wanted to give back to young leaders around the world. So that's when I started Leaders Edge. So there's a quick backstory. What are you going to do with that?
That's a heck of a story, man. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
I have another podcast for men. Will you come on that and talk about your story? Because there's a lot of men that need to hear from men that have gone through the type of crap you've gone through.
Yeah, I'd be honored to, brother.
Yeah, you should come on that. I think it'd be great.
I'd love to.
I like what your man John Simmons said to you. Take all that pain and make your life useful.
Yeah.
I really like that. I'm going to adopt that motto. That's good. Make your life useful. Be useful. Years ago on the show, I interviewed Tim Leatherman. You ever heard of the Leatherman multi-tool?
No, of course. Who hasn't? It's famous.
Well, that's the guy who invented it. That's the guy who invented it, right? Tim Leatherman. I had him on my show twice. And I remember the first time I had him on, he invented the Leatherman multi-tool to be useful. Yeah. That's what he said, is be useful.
Yeah, that's good.
And I'm like, yeah, that's really what life for a man is all about, to be useful out there in the world. And would you mind expanding on that before I get to the next question?
Yeah, John could see, the military is filled with kids that come in from all kinds of backgrounds, lots of broken backgrounds, and I was one of those kids. And the rest of my brothers, they went down the route of drug and alcohol addiction, and I'm the only one that escaped unscathed from that. And he could tell that I was simply trying to use success to mask. He's a pretty sharp dude, to mask the pain and insecurity and all the crap that I was trying to just tamp down. He could tell, he could see it. And so he wanted me just to use that stuff. Don't hide it. Don't stuff it down. Use it. Make it worthwhile. Take that pain. And he taught me this: never waste a pain. Take that pain, everything you've learned about people and dysfunction. And he could tell I had a compassionate heart. He could tell I wanted to make a difference in the world. And he said, let's take that and make all that pain useful, rather than being like a fuel for just being a millionaire. That was my goal at the time, just be a millionaire. He said, don't be so one-dimensional. Make your life matter. And so I changed all my college courses from software engineering. And I had 2 copyrighted software programs before I left high school. I was on my way to being, now we look at Microsoft and Apple, and I would have been a really rich dude. And he said, don't waste all that stuff there. Do something that's going to make an impact on the people in the world. And so I changed all my college courses to anthropology and sociology and psychology. And I've traveled around the world working in tribes and boardrooms, and I've learned how to build people and systems. And he was right.
What would you say right now, given what you're doing? What's the itch you scratch? What's the pain you solve?
I've said this for years, Nikki, that I think the greatest waste in human history is the waste of human potential. John saw it in me. He saw something I didn't see in myself, and he helped me to see that in other people. And so everywhere I go, it doesn't matter what company I'm working with, it doesn't matter what industry they do, I'm always looking to remind them that in this room, amongst these emerging leaders, there's an enormous amount of world-changing potential. We'll just take the time to go after it and see people for what they can be, not just widgets in a workshop, but far more than that. And so I guess the thing that I scratch is to realize that, listen, we work about 90,000 working hours in our lifetime, as Americans anyway, and why not make those places meaningful and fulfilling and prosperous, where people's creativity can be tapped into and problems can be solved through collaboration rather than dictation or direction. So that's where I love to spend my time.
So if you're approaching like a corporate leader, how would you speak it in a language that he'll understand and go, I got to solve this for me? What's in it for me and my organization?
Sure. Well, first of all, good business is being a good human, treating people. That's just good business. There's a good ROI there. Leaders, all of us, I've started 2 of my own businesses. All of us want ROI. And there is great ROI in treating people with honor and respect and seeing them, helping them feel seen, heard, and valued. There's tremendous ROI there. So the biggest thing when CEOs come to us and ask for our help, they usually are asking around the area of accountability. People don't want to work anymore. How do I get people to work? And I immediately understand from that point of view that person doesn't understand the psychology of motivation and inspiration. So one of the things I'll tell them immediately is we'll absolutely do that, but we're going to have to approach this from a different angle. It's not from the angle of sticks and carrots. It's from the angle of understanding how humans are motivated and how they find meaning in the workplace. If you'll give us the opportunity to do that, we'll help build in everything that you're asking for. More time, freedom, financial freedom, prosperity, productivity, efficiency, all that stuff we'll build in. But you got to understand how people work first.
Yeah, that's powerful. So I think you've already given me the answer, but I want to hear it in a succinct sentence. What's the dent you're looking to make in the universe?
Yeah, obviously a great quote from Jobs. The dent I want to leave in the universe, well, honestly, it begins with my kids and grandkids. I want them to catch me in the act of excellence every day. It begins with them. I want my kids and grandkids to catch me in the act of excellence. My legacy begins with them. And then that same thing just kind of spills out into every business we work with. That doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter what your background is, you can leave a lasting legacy and make a difference.
I like it. So who's your ideal client?
You need to be a lifelong learner. You need to have a posture of learning. I don't care how big your company is and how successful you are. You have to be open to looking at things from a different way. Culture is changing all the time. Society is changing all the time. The workforce has radically changed in the last 4 or 5 years. And so being open to understanding that Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, they speak different languages, and we have to learn to lead differently throughout those generations. So lifelong learners, industry-wise, doesn't really matter. All business is people business. So, but we excel in construction, manufacturing. We've done great work in law, medical fields, anywhere 8 figures, 9 figures, great size for us. But it's more about the mindset of taking good care of people, providing what we call a destination workplace. We want to work with leaders that want to provide a place where people can find meaning, value, and we'll help them make all their systems, both human and otherwise, better.
I love that. So, HR, how do you attract clients right now?
Honestly, mostly through referral. We do great work. We over deliver. I've created my own system of this as I was building my companies. I identified there's 6 systems in a business, and I just began talking about how we can maximize each of those systems. And so I've developed my own proprietary system. And so word of mouth, when you're really good at what you do, and I know I sound like I'm patting myself on the back, but this is my craft. I'm passionate about what we do. I'm passionate about making the workplace better. And, we work on this, we hone this craft. So mostly referrals. People hear about us from word of mouth, and the word spreads, and, we're booked out for the rest of this year. We have just a couple slots open for all of 2025. Obviously, we're on LinkedIn. I speak from stages. I present at conferences. So word gets out there as well. And I'll be publishing my first business book, leadership book, later this year as well. So that'll help.
That's awesome. Why don't you tell us a couple of your stories of clients you've worked with, some of your great success stories?
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. Let's go with manufacturing firm in Reno, Nevada. Very successful firm, but they plateaued. They had plateaued. like many leaders, they get to a certain place and they don't know how to lead to that next 9-figure level. And they heard me speak at a manufacturing conference, and they came up and said, H, we want to hire you. And these are good people with a good heart for people and good systems. And they took the company over from dad, but they were stuck. And very first workshop I went in and I identified this already. And I said, here's the problem is you have producers in the seats where leaders need to be sitting. So one of two things needs to happen. Either the producer is here in the room, is their executive leadership team, about 14 people. Either producers become leaders or they need to be replaced by leaders. One of the two things. And so taking them from a mindset of production to multiplication has been just a wonderful journey. In fact, we're traveling there in a couple of days, and it's going to be our 9th session together. And watching them change their mindset from producers and widget makers to leaders of all these different departmental teams has been a tremendous joy. And they already are on track to have their best year they've ever had. Profit-wise, growth-wise, just incredible. So very, very proud of that work with them. And then let's go to the other end. Let's go to the startup end. I had an attorney hear about our work with law firms, and he says, H, I want to completely change our brand and the type of law we do. I want to go from this kind of law to this kind of law. And I've heard you have success with rebranding and startups. And I said, absolutely, let's do it. And worked with them for the last 3 years. And they have had a 700% growth since the time we worked with. But it's about their mindset of learning and growing and wanting change and being open to change. And in fact, I'm speaking to their team tomorrow, and they've just added 2 more people. They're moving into a new building. So very proud of them as well. So both startup and then these big 9-figure companies that are willing to break through different ceilings.
You know, H, man, you made your mess your message, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's a good way to put it.
So what's the biggest challenge you face right now as this emerging thought leader who's making a big dent in the universe? What's the biggest challenge you're facing in terms of helping more people, scaling bigger?
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? When I first started this, to be honest with you, I said, I don't want a big team anymore. Like I said, I had a staff of 200. Like, I don't want to do that anymore. In my last third of my life, I just want to lead a quiet life and mentor people and, impact leaders. And we've just grown like crazy. And so I'm having to kind of redesign what I thought I was going to build, which is going to be just this small niche coaching, consulting, strategy firm. My son joined. Now we have a team of coaches. And so, yeah, scaling is a problem because I'm very protective of my brand and what we do. And so scaling the number of coaches and strategists that we work with and teaching them. And just getting the message out that we exist, that we're here, and getting that message out and letting that resonate with the right people and getting the right connections. So scaling is the challenge for sure right now.
What is the challenge around scaling exactly?
Oh, it's finding the right people that will protect our brand the way that we want it protected. Is finding the people who have the conversations, there's a mixture, right? There has to be this certain mixture for us at Leaders Edge anyway. You have to be really good at systems and understand how systems work and develop and engineer systems. And obviously we've developed a framework for this, so it's not that hard. And then understand humans and how humans are motivated, inspired, and dig past what people say into what they're thinking and what they're fearing. Every one of us wrestles with imposter syndrome and all the fears that we all have. And so having coaches on our team that are willing to dig beneath the layers and dig into that deeper stuff, that's a skill set that has to be honed. And we need coaches on the team that will do that deep work. And that's not dime a dozen stuff. That's not cookie cutter stuff. That's finding the right people with the right heart and skill set to do that.
So what frustrates you the most, man, around, the challenge in finding those people, that you haven't been able to find them as quickly as you want? Like, what is the biggest frustration?
No, they're coming to us. We haven't had any problem finding them. This year is going to represent just a whole next layer of growth, though. We have some big stuff coming down the line. We're going to be working with government contracts now. I'm a veteran, obviously, so veteran-owned small business that opens up.
My brother.
Thank you, my friend. That opens up all kinds of opportunities to impact, government systems. So this year is another big year of scaling. So we haven't had any problem yet, but I can see where we're headed of continuing finding the right people. It's what every growing company struggles with, right? Finding the right people, develop the right training, the right onboarding. It's everything we teach. We're experiencing that now ourselves.
So you talked a bit about imposter syndrome.
Sure.
Dig into that for me a little more.
Yeah, I mean, rooted in my history, growing up poor, being told what you couldn't be, couldn't do, being surrounded by poverty and dysfunction. It's almost bred into your DNA that there are limitations. And I've always, so early on, I had to fight through those myself. And you put on this bravado of pseudo-confidence and all the masks that we all wear. We're all guilty of this, starting with me. And so as a young, 20s and 30s, you wear this mask and this bravado of thinking you have all the answers. That was the solution to it. And as you get a little bit wiser and more authentic and more vulnerable, you begin to have those masks torn down. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to be the answer man. Learning that posturing yourself as a learner, as a person who's curious, begins to tear down some of that, just being authentic and vulnerable, and realize you're not going to be discarded because of authenticity and vulnerability. And then teaching those same principles everywhere we go, helping other leaders understand the superpower of authenticity, the superpower of vulnerability, of not having to have all the answers. Every high-performing leader I've ever worked with struggles with the imposter syndrome. I certainly do and have. I don't know anyone who escapes it. And I don't know that it's all bad, to be honest with you. Sure. I think there's a productive paranoia that can kind of fuel some healthy growth. And I always talk about dark drivers and healthy drivers, and we want to free ourselves from some of those dark drivers. I don't think it's all bad wrestling with that stuff. Get it out there in the open and say that I struggle with this thing and in a healthy way. So there you go.
Yeah, imposter syndrome, honestly, is something that I think everybody struggles with. I do still from time to time.
For sure.
And the crazy thing about it is the people that struggle with it the most are some of the most successful, high-performing people on the planet. It's crazy if you think about it.
I think one of the reasons that is because here's what I think happens. Everybody struggles with it. And those who don't push through it, we never get to see their potential. We never get to see the other side of it. So the ones we do see, it's a self-evident deal, right? They're the ones that said, absolutely, I struggle with it. Absolutely, I deal with it, but I'm going to push through in spite of it. Compared to those that are paralyzed by it, we never get to hear their stories because they've shrunken back and they're living a life far smaller than they should. So the ones that we look at and say they struggle with imposter syndrome, it's because we all do. They're just the ones that have pushed through it, just like you and I. Like we all have it, but those who say, listen, I have a data point of success there. I climbed that mountain, I overcame that hurdle, I slew that Goliath, I defeated that deal. So certainly this thing, though scary, I can do that as well because I have this set of data points behind me that propels me that while that next Goliath is scary, I've slayed all these dragons. I have a pretty good chance of slaying that one, so I'm going to give it a shot.
I like that phrase, the next Goliath. Where'd you come up with that?
Either we back down from him or we just fight him, one of the two. But he's always there. Whatever your next level is, what's that saying? New level, new devil. Whatever your next level is, there's always a Goliath saying you can't climb this, you can't beat this. And either we let that resonate as truth, or we look at our history and say, well, I've come this far. I have all these dead Goliaths in my past. I'm going to give it a shot anyway. And next thing you know, that dragon goes down and next one pops up.
I love it. The next Goliath, new level, new devil, productive paranoia. You've come up with some doozy phrases here today.
Well, thanks.
It's supercalifragilistic fantastic. Okay, so you were going to have a quiet life, and well, that turned out not to be the case.
No, it's not headed that direction, right?
Yeah. So what's next for you, bro?
What's next? More stages. We got the book coming out. We got the government contracts coming up. We're expanding. Last year was our biggest year ever. And this year we're starting at 15% larger. It's probably going to go up from there. Just impacting more people, my friend. Nikki, like you, for me, it's all about impacting as many leaders and teams as I possibly can. I believe that leaders change the world, and all the leaders that I and my team get to stand in front of and impact, I get to impact everyone on their team and their families. And so everything that I believe I've been called to do, it's not just a job for me. It's a calling. It feels like a mission to change the world one leader at a time. So, whatever God puts in front of me this year, and I'm entering my 6th decade, and I've been spouting it everywhere I go. All the leaders are going to stand up in front of. I believe my 60s are going to be my best decade ever. I feel it in my bones. I'm on a new high. I'm more passionate than ever. I have amazing energy, taking care of myself. It's going to be my best decade ever.
HR, I really enjoyed speaking to you. You're a brilliant dude. We end off every episode by asking you, our guest expert, what are your top 3 expert action steps? These are your 3 best pieces of advice in bullet point form that you want to share with my listener. What say you?
Okay, sure. Number 1, make thinking time a high priority. Thinking time has been one of the greatest catalysts of creativity and innovation in my entire life. I learned it from John Maxwell when I began my leadership journey 30-something years ago. And every single day, I take at least a half hour of quiet thinking time that either propels new ideas or helps improve things we're working on. So number 1, set aside thinking time every day. Number 2, set aside learning time every day. Podcast, book, newsletter, journal article, something. Be a lifelong learner. And number 3, make an impact in someone's life today. Just one person. Do those 3 things every day, and you're going to have a life that matters, a life of deep meaning. Think every day, learn every day, impact someone else's life every day.
I like it. So people want to find you, find out about your company, what you guys do. Where do we send them?
LinkedIn for sure, HR Huntsman, LinkedIn, or just email. yourleadersedge.com is our website, yourleadersedge.com, all one word. Email me. I love the personal touch, hr@yourleadersedge.com, hr@yourleadersedge.com. I love the personal touch. Anyone that I can add value to, I'd love to hear from them.
HR, you're a brilliant guy. I've really enjoyed the conversation. You obviously truly care about your fellow man. It's an honor to have spent some time with you today. Listener, HR Huntsman is the real deal. Make sure you go to his website, yourleadersedge.com. Email him. Not a lot of people offer to have a conversation with you. And the most incredible thing to me is very few people will take you up on this. This is just a fact. Very few people will. A lot of people will think, oh, that's nice, and they'll never do anything with it. But for the people that actually do, this is huge. I once went on one of the biggest podcasts in the world, okay? Millions of downloads, tens of millions of downloads. The guy said, what do you want to offer people? And I go, I'll have a conversation. It was a men's podcast, the biggest men's podcast in the world. He said, I'll have a conversation with any man who wants about any subject. You're dealing with any problems, just call me. I'll be your pal. And I was expecting, man, I was going to be overwhelmed. I'd have like 500 people reaching out to me. I had 43.
Wow.
Which was by far the biggest number of people that ever reached out to me, but it was way less than I expected.
Yeah.
And the reason is people are just like, oh, they don't really mean it. He means it. He means it. He really means it. You'll make his day if you email him. No matter how busy he is, it'll put a smile on his face.
It's a fact.
So 100% do it. 100% do it. I'm going to do it. Hell, when this show's over, I'm going to set up a time to bring HR on my other show. He's offered to have me on his show. I'm going to have another conversation with him because there's a couple things I think I can offer him that'll be valuable to him. I think there's something he can offer me that'll be valuable to me. Let's roll, guys. Take advantage of this. Podcasting is not just an opportunity for you to passively listen. It's an opportunity for you to make a friend and a connection.
That's good.
People do business with people they know, like, and trust. Know, like, and trust. Right now, HR and I, we spent this half hour plus getting to know, like, and trust each other. So that's already starting with us. It can start with you too. So do it. I double dog dare you. Email them.
Bring it.
HR Huntsman, an honor to have you here. I had a ton of fun. Thank you.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me. The honor is all mine.
And that wraps up another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. To find out more about today's guest, the one and only HR Huntsman, go to thethoughtleaderrevolution.com or wherever you happen to listen to this episode, be it iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, Rumble, or what have you. Until next time, goodbye.
This episode has been brought to you by eCircleAcademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.